During the Civil War, both sides would tear up the railroads to disrupt supplies and transportation. They would pull up the rails, pull up the cross ties, and set the cross ties on fire. The rails were iron, so the heat would soften the iron. The weight of the rail up in the air would sag, bending the rail. The rail closest to us was bent during the Civil War and was thrown in a creek and passenger depot for Tunnel Hill. And last year the city restored it, making a community center. Now the railroad was originally the Western and Atlantic Railroad Company, built by the state of Georgia, known as the State Road, built to connect what will become Atlanta, originally called Marthasville, transported by water to almost any state in the Union. Shortly after the completion of this railroad, Chattanooga moved into the Nashville and Chattanooga Railroad, also the Memphis and Charleston River at Memphis. Now the stonework here on our left is the original 1848 trestle or bridge support over Tanya Creek. Now in 1928 the railroad was forced to build a larger tunnel. You'll get a glimpse of that later. Now the Austin house that we will tour, at its height the farm has 320 acres, all on the right side of the road, sloping up this side of the mountain and the land that you see back behind the house. Today the museum has 86 of the original 320 acres. On our right you'll see some old farm equipment. And this item that looks like a cannon is a water cannon from the 1880s, 1890s, used by fire departments to fight fires. Top back you can see where the hose connected up, and there's a lever, a valve, and some type of foot device to operate the water cannon. The building on our right was originally the location of a dairy barn. Today the back half is an apartment for our groundskeeper. The front half is a replica of the Tunnel Hill General Store. We will go inside. Now the original I'll tell you about some of our items in here. We've got the old washboards. Would be kept in this and then sold or traded to other customers. Shoe repair. Now these would go inside the shoe depending on the size of the shoe. Inside the shoe, and then place it on the workbench and repair the shoe. Presents Mary Sumner Long. She was the first ever female postmaster appointed by President Grant in 1868. Could be spread out depending on the pallet size. Roll it up, lift the pallet, and you could move it. In a container like this, they called a cheese box. Could cut off what the customer wanted, weigh it on the scales. I get a kick out of the cigar holder. And this time of year,
okay, well.
And then what I get a kick out of is the front, be a man, smoke cigars. Sausage. We would call this a juicer. They called it a cider press for making apple cider. Your apples went in this bucket. There's a weight, but no prime and no next day. Might take weeks to get it. The old cash register, Our Coke machine is from the 1930s. We occasionally have some deer. Everything on the sides we'll talk about inside the house, so we don't have to stand out here. Their refrigerator, they would keep their dairy products and any fruits and vegetables that they had in the spring house. It stays around 50 degrees. Now, I like to point out the floors and the ceiling in here are original. Back then, no rods and bones, no plates and screws. Another concern was gangrene and infection. If you got that in the wound and it got in the blood system, there was no cure for that. So they would remove limbs using the bone saw. And I've read that a well-trained surgeon could remove an arm or a leg as quick as 30 to 40 seconds. So they're really cutting. But there's also an old saying. It evolved over time into, like back during the Depression, old folks would say when times get tough, you got to bite the bullet. But that actually traced back to the Civil War. They would have the patient bite on one of those lead bullets while they operated on them. Now, how the telephone worked. See, nothing to dial. You would answer, you would tell the operator who you wanted to talk to. Usually a number that you gave, or maybe the person's name. The operator would connect wires at her switchboard and connect you to who you want.